Hello everyone, I'm Alan, also known as McLaren2009, and today I'm back in Starmade. Today I'm going to do a brief video to just kind of show what I've been working on in my live streams. One of these days I'm actually going to get back to streaming this particular world. This is my base and my work-in-progress capital ship. I went and found specifically this type of station because it's probably the best one for my purposes. This was originally made by Techsmith, if I'm not mistaken. I've made a couple of minor modifications to make it suit my purposes. Like, for instance, I took all of these individual arms and I gave them doors and docking points. Also gave all four of them transporters. Now, I've made a couple of changes to the interior. Like, for instance, I've completely ripped out the existing power system and replaced it with a fairly simple reactor that honestly still isn't big enough. It instantly gets overloaded the second I put I dock my capital ship to the station. I've got some power efficiency, logistics, things, stuff like that. And that's the power for the station. Then I kind of have the most convoluted refinement system ever. Each one of the main bays up here on the top floor, each one serves a different purpose. If you go in here into the first bay, here are the controls for all of my refineries. As you can see, there's nothing currently in storage, and none of them are currently on. Now, all of those are tied to all of these. All four of them are 25 different refineries. So, 100 things at a time. Pair that with the fact that I have slightly increased production capabilities, it might actually make 200 per tick, if all four of them are on. Over here is a simple microassembler. Not enough currently to actually turn it on. Honestly, I could probably scrap those. You go over here into the second bay. This is where all of my basic refineries are. I've got the same general system for all three of the other rooms. Basically, it goes like this. This factory makes 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, and this one, no. These two are not tied to anything, so they're technically just making one. So, all of these are set up for basic. Go over here. These are set up for standard. Same thing as before. 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, 1, and 1. Advanced is set up the same way. Now, the secondary, the little bays to the left and right, I didn't do a good job of setting it up, but there's the 5, 10, 25, 50, 100. All of them are set up exactly like that, with the exception of the refineries. This room's empty. This room has all of the refineries. Now, this is the biggest structural change that I've made. I put this improvised stairwell in here, going up here to what became a control room. These little lights are tied to all 4 of the docking arms, all 4 of the the lower hangar bays, the transfer docking station up on the very top, and I guess in theory I could have had one out here, but I opted against it. But I basically turned this floor, or I made this into a floor, and turned it into a control center for the entire station. You go out here, I've built a little makeshift landing pad and what may be the ugliest shuttle in the game. I don't know what my inspiration was, but I built it, it works, it's capable of defending itself, sort of. Alright, now let's go back inside. Now this part I actually am sort of proud of. This is a basic elevator. It can stop on all 3 levels, going all the way down here to the ground. Now, down on the ground floor is where my production system gets extremely convoluted. This thing right here is supposed to be a small-scale factory to make dark gray advanced armor. It was supposed to be set up in a way that it makes exactly what it's supposed to in the right order, but it's kind of hard to use and frustrating to look at. You go behind the walls, and you have all of the factory enhancers and storage required to make, I want to say, 500 advanced dark gray armor at a time. But, as you can tell, it's not exactly the most pretty thing to look at. And honestly, it's not my best example of a good factory system. Down here, you have a transporter. This should be the... I actually don't know what this is supposed to be. I've currently got nothing in it, so I don't think anything is in it. Alright, let's go into the first hangar bay. This has my initial disaster of a craft that I did not realize was as beat up as it was. Might have to fix that. Although, to be fair, I'm gonna scrap it for parts anyway. But it's currently down here as kind of like a bit of a museum, if you will. These things are both set up to make different color armor. Just different color standard armor. Anything that requires 2 tones. I think it's currently set for green and red. Those are just to make standard armor in, I want to say, 100 block increments. It's a pretty good system. It looks a little bit better and it's easier to deal with. In all 4 hangar bays on both sides, I've got these stabilizer nodes pretty much. You can go down below into these things where there used to be power or old power capacitors. I took all of them out, and these are now further expanded reactor stabilizers. Go back in here, and that brings us over to Hangar Bay 2. Nothing fancy about 2. It's just a empty hangar bay, essentially. You go over here to Bay 3, and this one's a little bit crazy. This one I've essentially nicknamed the Armor Forge. You might be able to guess why. This one right here makes gray basic armor. This one makes gray standard armor. This one makes dark gray basic armor because I didn't have a bay for that at first. This makes glass. And these are tooled for different things. This one makes hazard armor. This one also makes dark gray standard armor. Okay, both of these make dark gray standard armor. And this one currently is set to make red. I know what you're probably thinking. I have another bay for that over in 1, I think it was. But realistically, that one should be retooled for something else. You go over here to Bay 4. It's a mostly empty bay, except for this. This is where I have my one functioning shipyard. I actually forgot how to use this thing, so I had to go back onto YouTube and look up a couple of videos how to even turn this thing on. So I'm going to have to debug and figure that out sooner or later. Now, in all 4 bays, I produced and installed these big red energy-based doors. Really kind of cool. I put a couple of plaques on all 4 arms so you know which one you're docking with. I know, really complicated stuff. This one is the only one that kind of shows a false positive on my little indicator terminal, because yes, it does have something docked to it, but it's not really a ship. This thing is supposed to be my docking arm that basically acts as a shuttle. It's supposed to be a bridge between the station and the capital ship, except, like I said, the reactor in the capital ship is actually bigger than the one in the station, so as soon as I dock it, the power just goes completely haywire. It's a bit of a nightmare. Oh, I forgot to mention this. In this area, I also have another storage container that is tied to these. And these are set to auto-pull armor from all of these. On all of the blocks, I have these, on all the hangar bays, I have these little blocks that open and close the force field. And they also have one of these blue indicator lights. If we go back into Bay 1 and go up here, you'll see that this light is currently lit. Because, as you can tell, there's a ship docked there. Now you go out here, you have my first successful mining ship. It's sort of, if you squint and don't think about it too hard, it's loosely inspired by Star Trek, and I do mean loose. Inspiration is being generous. But, in spite of how it looks, it's actually a pretty good ship. This is a pretty stable mining array that kind of works wonders for getting rid of smaller asteroids. But I don't currently use that ship. I currently use this one. Now you'll notice on the side of this ship, I wrote on both sides RSE. My faction tag is Red Star Enterprises. Now, you might think this goes a couple of different ways, like, for instance, is it a play on like White Star Lines, the company that made the Titanic? No, it's not. Is it a play on the fact that the developers of Starmade have a red star as their icon? No, it actually doesn't have anything to do with that either. In fact, my motivations are way more simple than that. I chose Red Star Enterprises because my favorite color is red, as you may have guessed by my chosen force field, and we're in a game playing in space with stars. That is the peak of my creativity. It's not visible from here, but if you go out here, okay, I'm guessing our star went supernova or something, but I specifically found a solar system with a red star. Case in point. Now, really quick, I'm going to go up and I'm going to show you my work-in-progress capital ship. I've called it the Empress. Basically, ever since I started playing Star Trek Online, back when it was still a subscription-based game, I've always had a ship called the Empress. It's kind of like, if you look here in the US, we will always have an Enterprise. It's kind of like that. The ship itself is actually pretty basic. The bridge is currently a work in progress, but it looks pretty decent given the fact that it's currently empty. Pretty straightforward captain's chair, stuff like that. You go down here. I've got a improvised kind of like conference room type thing. You go down here, I have another passageway. These are the airlocks in and out of the ship. Another central passageway. Go in here. This is going to serve as like a ready room or locker room type space. You go in here. These are going to be drop pods, so you can launch cargo out of the bottom of the ship. Both sides are mirrored, because I like to keep things simple. You go back here. These not so cleverly hidden doors are the ladder wells that go up and down all 4 floors of the ship. That doesn't look right. And it's not. And if that's wrong, that means everything else is probably wrong. No, it's just that. That's annoying. I'll get back to that. Now, I had to outline these with red because it was kind of like a poor design choice on my part. But basically, it's kind of hidden. I went and did this sort of ornate thing to kind of like give it a little bit of a flair or kind of make it more aesthetically pleasing, but then I got to these and I have nothing, but they're hidden behind these pillars for the doors, so I had to outline them in red just so that you could find them. Otherwise, you would look past it and not even realize there was a door there. Honestly, it's a failure on my part. You go in here, and this is the main cargo hold for the ship. This little storage container on a pedestal, this thing is tied to the mining arrays up front. Now let's go up to the 2nd floor. Once again, doors outlined with red. The one forward goes up, the one towards the back goes down. This room is kind of intended as somewhat of a ready room or workspace for like a squadron type area. You go forward and we're into the Hangar Bay. Now I have 4 pads in here, each with a landing pad facing, or a docking port facing out. Nothing too fancy, just a square room, force field doors on either side. You go forward onto the second floor, and you have this big empty room. Now, the plan for this room, I want to turn this into crew quarters, since the room is just big enough that I can put a second floor in here comfortably and still have room up and down. I want to make this into a two-tiered thing, kind of like a balcony coming out to like a catwalk, and put like rooms, stores, berthing spaces, things like that. Stuff to make this into a ship. Up here is my, we'll call it a disaster of a CIC or information center type thing. These are all of the weapons computers. Then you go up here to the third floor. Once again, forward is up, back is down. Another ready room. This floor is a little bit different. You go over here, and this is supposed to be a control room for the hangar bay. I haven't really gotten around to furnishing this thing too well yet. Like I said, it's a major work in progress. I put these big passageways up over the doors. They perfectly blend in and you wouldn't even notice them, but they lead into this room. Now, in here is where all of the power and stuff is, but you can't physically get into this room unless you're in build mode. Now, also to the back, there are rooms here and here that house the shields and the thrusters. This room's completely empty. The idea with leaving these rooms completely empty like this is just simply so that I can add more thrusters if I need to, which I actually currently do need to. Now, you go up to the fourth floor. You have another cargo hold. As you can see, this one I have not traced out with the caution tape yet. I haven't even put lights on this floor yet. But this area, this storage section, or cargo space and storage box, these are intended to be like your colony storage. This is the stuff that you're going to need to carry on the ship in order to build a base in another star system on a different planet. That's what I'm going to put in this box. Here's the stairs. Back is still going down. You go in here. This massive room is going to be passenger space. Basically, if you can imagine like the main center compartment of like a cruise liner, that's what I intend for this room to look like. You go forward, multi-purpose room, possibly a dining facility. Haven't really decided yet. I don't know why that doesn't look right. Probably because it's all dark. Alright, I've made a couple of mistakes on this ship. Alright. Now, you go forward, you have this massive mining array. This thing can obliterate even large asteroids in a matter of seconds. No more than like a minute, 2 minutes. even for like the big 150,000 asteroids. Now, as you can tell, really bland, boring. With the color palette, you get to the back, it's not even finished. I've got a fairly large cannon reinforced with beams to make it shoot farther, and little kinetic modules to make it penetrate armor a little bit better. But it's nothing too special. I tried attacking a pirate station with it, couldn't even touch their shields. And I'm not very creative when it comes to color schemes, so the outside of the ship is very much plain. But that's what I've got made of the capital ship. And just to close out the tour of the interior of the base, I've got a couple of little things like faction modules, the main storage for refined resources, stuff like that. There's also a store module. Basically, there's a lot of stuff just to make this functional as a factory station. There aren't really any living spaces, nothing like that. I haven't gotten too crazy. However, if you go into all four of these little bays, you'll notice these things. Each one of these things, I've repurposed it to serve as legitimate storage for the base. This thing right here, I just keep needing more and more space. You can go in here, and this thing has that entire one. Basically, I would harvest entire asteroids and not be able to put them anywhere. And that was a bit of a problem, so I just had to keep making more and more space. But all in all, this is the progress that I have made with this space station. I've made it into something that I can use. And it's pretty good. I took one of the base stations in the game, and I made a couple of changes to get it to suit my needs. Installed an elevator, changed a couple of doors around, made this weird, convoluted refining factory system, and made a crazy armor production system. But all in all, it works pretty good. The only thing it's missing is weapons to defend itself. But that about wraps it up for this video. So, thank you and goodbye.